Good morning. We are going to be reading this article called To Dance on the Waves. It's a story, so we're kind of changing gears from doing our informational text and we're looking at a story. So this video is probably going to be a little longer than they usually are, so bear with me. What we're going to do is go over the questions. We're going to annotate our questions. We will annotate this text, and then you will go ahead and answer the questions based on our annotation. And you will answer those questions directly on Kiddom. So let's go ahead and take a look at our questions first, and then we can go ahead and get started on the reading. So the questions are found on page 25, and here we go. Let's go through them. Yukio and Sen reached the village by walking, by plane, by bike, by plane, by cab. So they reached the village how? Yukio and Sen came to the village to go surfing, look for a dog, go fishing, or all the above. So they came to the village. Why? What was their purpose? Number 3, the village was in Texas, Mexico, California, none of the above. So I'm going to circle village in and write location. The houses in the village had palm fronds, big windows, metal roofs, or green doors. The houses. Before they got in the water, Yukio and Sen sent a note to their parents, pitched a tent, met some friends, put wax on their surfboards. So what did they do before they got in the water? Number 6, Sen and Yukio rubbed wax on their surfboards to make them slippery, make them heavier, make them waterproof, keep their feet from sliding off the boards. So I'm going to circle rubbed wax on their surfboards and again put why. What was the purpose? The waves in the Pacific Ocean were bigger than the ones Yukio had surfed before, were a rich dark blue, scared Yukio, or all the above. So we want to know about the waves in the Pacific Ocean. Yukio was scared of the waves because Sen would not help him. He had almost drowned when he was 4. He had almost drowned when he was 2. None of the above. I'm going to circle Yukio was scared, and I'm going to write the words afraid, why to the side to remember we're looking for why he was scared. Number 9, Sen had been to Mexico 4 times, 8 times, 1 time, or 10 times. I'm going to circle Sen, Mexico, and put a number sign because we're looking for the number. And then number 10, Yukio was older than the surfers, younger than the surfers, a better surfer than the other surfers, or none of the above. So here we want to just know something about Yukio. The truth. Okay. Now that we have our questions answered, we're going to go ahead and read. And as you can see, the text is broken into sections, kind of like chapters. Like we have a chapter 1, we have a chapter 2, and I think it goes up to 4. So what I'm going to do is at the end of each section, I'm going to tell you what questions we can answer based off of what we have learned so far to help you find your answers. So let's go ahead and do section 1 first. Find out what Yukio and Sen are doing in Mexico. The old yellow cab bounced down the dirt road. Yukio could see palm trees through the window. He thought, I hope the surfboards don't fly off the roof. As the cab bounced around a corner, Yukio saw a small village up ahead. The homes had metal roofs. Dogs looked for scraps of food or slept in the shade. Sen, his older brother, grinned and pointed. Look at that, he said. Yukio saw the side of the store was painted with a colorful picture of a surfer. Then he saw the real ocean past the store. With my highlighter, I'm going to highlight some things that I think are important. We see things about surfing and water Ocean. There was something about villages, so we have village. We have it. They took a cab. That could be important. These are probably the things that we need to take away from this page. Yukio's heart pounded. Calm down, he told himself, looking at the water. Wave after wave rolled toward the beach. The water was a rich, dark blue. White spray blew off the tops of the waves. Yukio stuck his head out of the window of the cab. As he listened to the crashing sound of the waves, fear gripped his stomach. I hope I can do this, Yukio thought as he and Sen got out of the cab. I'm going to highlight that his heart pounded and that he had fear, because we talked about in the questions that he was scared about something, so that's good to know. Sen looked at the water. He laughed happily. This is great, he said. Let's set up our stuff over there. They found a small hut with a roof of palm fronds. They set their surfboards, their towels, and their coolers. Yukio saw that some surfers were camping right on the beach. He was glad that he and Sen would be going back to their hotel where their parents were waiting. Okay, so again, we see surfing boards. We see surfers kind of everywhere. Beach, water. Sen was in a hurry to start surfing. He said, okay, we're all set. Let's hit the water. Yukio stood and looked at the ocean. He watched a surfer paddling out to catch a wave. The surfer stood up on his board. The wave broke over his head. The surfer was pounded by the deluge of water. Yukio held his breath until the surfer popped up from the water. I'm going to even go ahead and highlight right here that Yukio held his breath, because that could be another way to show that he's scared. His heart pounded. Fear gripped his stomach. He held his breath. These are kind of important. So that's the end of section 1. So based off of our questions, let's see what we could answer in section 1. We can answer number 1, how they reached the village. We can answer number 2, what they were doing here. We can answer number 4, something about the houses. And that's probably all we can answer at the moment, are those. So we'll go ahead and keep reading to section 2. So section 2. Read section 2 to find out why Yukio is afraid of the waves. So that tells us right here, we're going to find out why he's afraid. That's one of our questions. So let's keep going. Yukio thought about all the times that Sen had helped him with his fear of water and waves. Fear. Yukio had been 2 years old when he had almost drowned. That's important. Since then, Sen had always been there for him. He helped Yukio learn how to swim, taught him to dive, and shared his love of surfing. Sen's cheerful words and confidence had helped Yukio. Slowly, he grew less afraid of the water. He had even been surfing a few times with Sen, but never on waves this big. I'm also going to put a note over here and just write how Sen helped Yukio, because we get a couple of different ways here that he helped him. He taught him how to swim, how to dive, shared surfing, cheerful words. He gave him a lot of encouragement. Okay, I'm ready, Yukio lied. His heart raced as they grabbed their surfboards. Wait, said Sen, we need wax. The wax was to help keep their feet from sliding off the board. I think that was one of our questions. They rubbed the wax on their boards. Then the two brothers waded into the water, hopped on their boards, and started paddling. So they are entering the water. A wave broke in front of them. Come on, Sen called. He pushed the nose of his surfboard underwater and ducked under the wave. Yukio tried to do the same. He did not duck deep enough. A wall of white water slammed into him. Yukio was knocked off his board. He flopped around in the water like a duck with a broken wing. His mouth filled with salt water. He felt scared and afraid of drowning. Then he felt a hand reaching for him. "Are you okay?" asked Sen. Yukio nodded, and gulped for air. His throat hurt from swallowing the salty water. Sen started back to where the waves were breaking. Yukio paddled to catch up. Then Yukio heard someone yell, "Outside!" He looked toward the horizon. A line of huge swells was moving quickly toward the surfers. Everyone in the water scrambled to get past the waves before they broke. Yukio was at the back of the pack. So here we know that there's a huge swell coming. And here we can say that Yukio kind of had a scare right here. We can put Yukio's scare to help us kind of remember what happened on this page. And that's the end of section 2. So let's figure out what questions we can answer in section 2. We can answer number 5 on what they did before they got in the water. We can answer number 6, why they put wax on their boards. We can answer number 8, why Yukio was scared. And that's probably all we can answer at the moment. So 5, 6, and 8 we're able to answer in this section. Let's keep going. Section 3, to find out why Yukio feels as if he were in a washing machine. Yukio barely made it over one wave before another came crashing past him. Only one more wave left, he told himself. His heart was in his throat. It was the biggest wave of the set. Yukio pulled himself through the water. His arms hurt. He did not want to get hit by this monster. He paddled straight up the face of the wave. Just as he reached the top, the wave pitched him backward. He was slammed into the water on his back. Ouch. When the wave crashed on top of him, Yukio felt tossed around like a rag doll. He kept rolling under the water. He felt as if he were in a washing machine. His lungs needed air, but he didn't know where the air was. He didn't know which way was up. Suddenly, Yukio's head popped up over the water. The waves had passed. "That was awful," Yukio gasped as he lifted his tired body onto his board. He saw his brother Sen was smiling at him. "It looks like you got put through a wash cycle," Sen said. So here we can have again another fail from Yukio. He tried again and did not go well. Yukio shook the wet black hair out of his eyes. He said shakily, "Sen, that was the wash and spin cycle." Sen laughed. As Sen paddled off, he called, "Follow me. I'll show you the best place to wait for the waves." Since this was Sen's 4th trip to Mexico, I'm going to highlight that. He knew these waters well. After a couple of minutes, Sen stopped and shouted, "This is the place." Yukio sat up on his board and glanced around. There were 5 other surfers in the same place. Yukio was the youngest one. One surfer called out, "Set!" Yukio looked at the horizon. Another set of waves was rolling in. 2 surfers paddled past him and caught the first wave. Another surfer caught the second wave. Then Yukio saw that he could catch the 3rd wave. "Don't be a chicken," he told himself firmly. All right, so he's getting ready to try again. As Yukio started paddling, he could feel the swell pushing his board forward. The power of the wave was incredible. Yukio jumped to his feet. "I did it," he shouted. Yukio was so excited that he forgot what he was doing. The nose of the board slipped under the water. Yukio went flying, as if he had been pitched off a bucking bronco. As he popped up and grabbed his board, Yukio thought, "That must have looked really stupid." Then Yukio realized he was worrying about what the other people thought, not about drowning. That meant he wasn't scared anymore. He had paddled out. He had been pounded by monster waves, and he was fine. "I can handle this," he said. So here, I'm going to highlight that he realized he was worrying about what other people thought, not about drowning, and that he was fine. I can handle this. We see a change in Yukio's perspective here. He kind of gets a new confidence. And I think that is the end of section 3. So what can we answer with section 3? Well, we can answer number 3. We now know the location of where they're at. We can answer number 9, how many times Sen had been there. And we can answer number 10, something about Yukio. Last section, section 4. Find out how Yukio feels after riding his first wave in the Pacific Ocean. So here's the location again, Pacific Ocean. Yukio could see another set of waves on the horizon. He paddled into place. He let the first 3 waves go by. Each one was bigger than the last. All the surfers around him had taken off, including Sen. The largest wave of the set was heading this way. Yukio gritted his teeth. He dug his arms into the water. The wave turned into a wall in front of him. Now, said Yukio to himself. He jumped to his feet, and the surfboard took off like a rocket. The largest wave, that's pretty important. Every nerve in his body was singing. His board flew across the wave like a bird. A wall of water came toward him. It was so close that Yukio could put his hand out and touch it. He had made a turn at the bottom of the wave. He shot to the top. Then he tipped his surfboard off the wave. He headed for the bottom again. Yukio had never felt anything like this in his life. He moved up and down with the rhythm of the water. One last time, Yukio flew over the top of the wave and landed on the other side. When he came up out of the water, he was grinning. Sen, who had been watching, shouted proudly, "Great job. Welcome to the Pacific Ocean." So here it tells him about his experience surfing. Experiencing surfing. And I'm going to highlight Sen's final words. Great job. Welcome to the Pacific Ocean. Yukio was finally successful, which means that we could answer number 7 in this section. So that should be all of our questions. So let's go over this one more time. So section number 1, we can answer 1, 2, and 4, which is questions. Yukio and Sen reached the village. Yukio and Sen came to the village too, and the houses in the village had. In section 2, we can answer numbers 5, 6, and 8. So before they got in the water, Yukio and Sen and Yukio rubbed wax on their surfboards. Yukio was scared of the waves because. In section 3, we can answer number 3, 9, and 10. We can answer the village was in. Sen had been to Mexico how many times? And Yukio was. And then in the final section, section 4, we can answer number 7, the waves in the Pacific Ocean, blank. So, once you think you know all your answers, go back to Kiddem and log your answers in on the multiple choice that I have listed below. I want to see how you all do. And depending on how we do, there will probably be a video later on in the week to show you where you could have found your answers. Or we'll talk about it on our Zoom on Friday. So have a good day and best of luck.